CTO of the state of California had gotten so much hate mail about the experience that he was
Huh.
threatening them. They were referred to us to like help them solve this because he was getting hate mail from the people, the human beings, his constituents, about this.
Oh my goodness.
Their back was against the wall, and they said, okay. But so because their back was against the wall, we jumped in. Once again, they've been building this tech. If we tried to rebuild it would take us 7 years.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The innovation projects could be perceived as risky. It might also be harder for operational and financial executives to assess the ROI of such initiatives. But done right, companies can not only improve the customer experience while converting them into digitally native culture, they could also increase the enterprise value of such companies by 2x. In today's episode, our guest, Chris Stegner, discusses how to transform a company into digital. He also discusses cultural issues such as politics and how they could be a barrier to innovation-driven culture. Finally, he shares several stories of companies where he was able to increase the enterprise value of companies purely by transforming their customer and user experience. Let me introduce Chris to you. Chris Stegner is a seasoned technology entrepreneur with a proven track record of success. Since starting his startup at the age of 13 and getting acquired at 15, he has assisted in launching digital products of some of the world's most recognized companies such as Walmart, T-Mobile, Sam's Club, and Levi's. As Very Big Things CEO, he led the company to work with unicorn startups such as Papa. He impacted the enterprise space by working with companies such as Ryder Systems, Royal Caribbean Group, and Share Care. He has also led the company to win numerous awards for innovation and design. He has been recognized as a South Florida technology community leader with the 40 Under 40 awards. Chris is a leader in understanding how to innovate companies and bring them to their greatest selves by digitally elevating their brand, experiences, and opportunities. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, hey Chris, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Hey, going great. And this is such a nice day. I mean, sun is out there. So this is going to be so fun to have this conversation with you.
Like you mentioned, it is nice. The sun is out. I'm down here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where it has been flooding for the last 2 days. So the fact that we're seeing blue skies and sunshine is amazing. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, must be a nice break for you. I know how the downpour could feel. So just to kick things off, and if my listeners might not know you, do you want to share a little bit about yourself as well as what you're focusing on these days, Chris?
Yeah, so really quick, I've been doing technology, startups, enterprise technology, but mostly consumer facing and forward facing, human facing side of it. Since I literally started my first startup when I was 13, I got acquired when I was 14. That one got acquired when I was 15, and then that one was supposed to get acquired and allow me to retire. And then the internet bubble burst, and instead I was left with a little bit of cash and a whole lot of experience. But so now I'm 41, so I've been doing this for a long time. Been a CTO a bunch of places. Been a partner at a VC fund where it was literally just my job that we'd basically give companies around $5 million And then I jump in to help them figure out product market fit, traction, how to go to market, figure out what their tech should be, figure out how to make their products really excellent, and launch them out to the world. And took a slight detour from that to do some consulting when my wife got pregnant. A really small consulting company, but at the consulting company we helped things like store.apple.com get built, and Walmart we helped with like their UX UI when they first moved to a web application.
Yeah.
Slew of other projects like that, and then saw kind of a need for a company that really understood how to make companies successful, with their digital products, not just like deliver it, because a lot of times companies are like, hey, we don't have time to build a team over the next year or two.
Yeah.
We need to build it immediately. And most of the agencies, I think, just knew how to take in a scope and then return a product versus like, how do we actually set you up for success?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we jumped in to attack that. I stole a couple of the first employees from the consulting company, and we said, hey, let's go solve this problem that we're seeing. And that was 4.5, almost 5 years ago. I think right about the same time that you guys started. So you could probably relate on timelines.
I can relate on so many different things. I can relate on age because we are very similar right now. I mean, literally 41, I guess. The company age, I guess.
So us and our baby are the same age.
Yeah, and my baby is right now 2.5, 3. So yeah, I mean, it's probably similar journey as well. Yeah, and the startup journey sounds very exciting too. So I want to peel a little bit there in terms of your startup journey before I go to the standard question that we asked. We'll do that next. First, tell us a little bit more about what these startups were, what was the focus of these startups, and yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I was 12, I was living in not the greatest area of town. It was like a not amazing suburb of Seattle.
Yeah.
There was a whole lot of opportunity, and this kind of came in a weird way, but I'd left Oklahoma in a situation where I was surrounded by opportunity, surrounded by success. And then we moved to this suburb where there was just no opportunity to be found anywhere. The wealthiest person that I knew of, just like even knew of, was a friend of a friend's dad who worked for his dad's company. And he made $100,000 a year, which was like, cool, you are like super rich, you know. And I don't think he even did anything; just kind of like worked for his dad. So when I'm living in this kind of new world, I still had the drive. I still wanted to do something important, and so I think searching subconsciously for an avenue to do that. And then I got exposed to computers, and then shortly after, I got like an AOL disc in the mail, that said free trial, and I did that free trial because if you remember, the internet was really expensive back in the day.
Yeah, I know.
And so I used this free trial, and I'm like, wow, on this thing, like I had the same opportunity as anybody in the entire world. Like
Right.
we all have an internet connection. There's no kind of like nobody has a step above.
Yeah, no rich, no poor.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of it, it's kind of like a wild, wild west. It's kind of like a gold rush type event. Like everybody was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
So once I got that, truth be told, I got my hands on a fake credit card number generator, and it wasn't like real credit cards. But it was enough to give you another 30-day free trial. Like you couldn't actually pay for anything, but it was enough to trick them into giving you a free trial, right? So I just did free trial after free trial, and got access to the internet through that. And I'll kind of pull into it pretty quick, but there was a piece of like 3D software that really caught my attention. I've always been a creative person, so I was like, creativity and technology meeting, it just sounded amazing. But the software cost like $4,000 or something, and I had like $5, so that wasn't going to happen. But somehow I got my hands on a copy of it. Leave the imagination to figure that one out.
Yeah.
But when I got the copy, I didn't get the 4 huge manuals that came with the software that taught you how to use it.
Yeah.
And I figured there was a lot of people like me out there too, and it was really complicated software.
Yeah.
So as I started learning it, I said, there's other people that want this information. And I created a website to share the tutorials on how to use it. Turns out that even the people that bought the software did not want to read those 4 major books. So they all started coming to the website as well. And next thing you know, we were like interviewing people who won Oscar awards for like best 3D
What?
animated film. Yeah, we're reviewing all the products. We became the destination for it, to where the manufacturer of the software put our flyer in
Huh.
every piece that it shipped. So we became like the kind of like unofficial continuous education for
Huh.
it.
Huh.
And so the last piece of this was they sold plugins for it. Like anybody could make a plugin, and the plugins cost about $2,000. And there was nowhere to advertise them except for us. So our deal was, hey, for the cost of what your software costs for 1 month,
Yeah.
we'll charge you that. Sell one piece of software per month, and then it's all made sense.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't too long before all of a sudden we were making like 20,000 a month just
Huh.
on advertising, which
Hmm.
for a 13-year-old
Exactly.
in a
In
not
that
amazing
time.
area now, yeah,
In
like
that time.
I'm making like twice what the richest person I knew,
Yeah.
making for my futon in my makeshift office/bedroom. So that was the beginning of it. And then that got acquired by 3dreview.com, and they made me a vice president there. And then that got acquired by mydesktop.com, and they made me a vice president there. And then it was supposed to get acquired by a huge, very well-known company. And then the internet bubble burst, and it all just kind of disappeared. And I turned into a high schooler for a little while,
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting journey and story. And it's just fascinating the way things evolved overall from the internet perspective. We were really wondering how to get access, and now everybody sort of has that. So it's always fascinating. So now, we have one of these standard questions that we ask every single guest. So let's get that out of our way. And that is going to be your perspective on business growth.
I mean, business growth is good. I'll go back to a little kind of general feeling I have, and hopefully nobody takes this the wrong way. I tend to have the personal belief that any person of mediocre talent, given enough time, can pull off anything, right? This will sound really stupid and far-fetched, and your listeners will probably be like, "Who did you let on the show?" But I think about literally like think of like a 300-year-old vampire in a movie. They're
Yeah.
always rich, right? Because they had 300 years to kind of figure out how to pull it up, right?
Yeah.
And I really believe that in my soul. That said, what I think differentiates people that are really special, especially in business, is how fast they can pull off that growth, right? How fast they can get from here to there. So if any mediocre person can do it in 300 years, can you do it in 2 years, right? And what does a path look like to get there? So I guess in general, I think growth is amazing. It has to be done right, otherwise it'll end up imploding on you. So it's not just about pulling it off, but it's pulling it off and sustaining it, and sustained growth for time over time. Same time, I believe when people are doing things really the right way, it's amazing how much growth you can get in a very short amount of time. Even for a company that, say, has been around for 30 years, there's nothing stopping them from making that 31st year also in a year where they just shoot up in growth. So does that kind of answer your question in a way that makes sense?
It does. And in fact, that is such a deep and profound thought. And I have no idea why you felt that anybody was going to take it the wrong way.
There can always be somebody on the flip side that's like, hey, I've been running this business for 35 years and we have 4 employees, and I think that's an important piece. And I wanted to have 400, but we just haven't figured it out, but hey, we have a successful company, so it's, you can see both sides of it.
Could not agree more. So let's dive into today's topic a little bit, right? So obviously we want to discuss, and you guys do amazing work overall from the front end perspective. And I think one of the things that I caught in the conversation that we were having right before the show is this whole idea of how can you be perceived as a digital company, especially if you're going to be slightly more legacy brand and you are trying to come across as more of the digital brand? In general, in my whatever time I have spent, 20, 25 years in this phase, just doing these digital transformation engagement itself is very hard. People have been doing for so long, they cannot really figure out, why they don't work or why they don't get results in the budget that they are looking for. It's obviously very hard in general. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you are trying to convert any company that is going to be a digital company, that requires a lot more lift. Okay. Overall, from the talent perspective, from the processes, from mindset. Okay. It's almost like I don't know how to define this, but almost like a soul cleansing, exercise that we need to do.
Fair,
um,
very.
Right. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about, what is the journey like, and maybe if you have any sort of stories that you might be able to share, where you went and, the company wasn't as digital. Obviously, you are going to have aspirations. I get a lot of inquiries. Hey, can you convert my company into digital transformation company? And I'm like, okay, what's your budget? Where you are? We get these
Um,
interesting inquiries as well. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, to your question of like, what's your budget, right? To me, I'd say like, what's your appetite for it?
Exactly.
Like, are you really serious about it?
Yeah.
We internally will do these things called design sprints. I don't know if you're familiar, like Google
Yeah. Yeah.
Ventures. For your listeners, it's not a development sprint. It's not an agile sprint. It's a 5-day process to solve any problem in the world, and we'll do it with a lot of our clients to help them figure out new innovative solutions to their business. And interestingly, and usually in these, it'll be 4 people from our team and like 6 executives from their team, trapped in a room for 5 days. And through the process, you kind of identify goals and things that could go wrong, as well as like paths to get to where they want to go. But in that portion of like what could go wrong, the interesting thing that always pops up, and this is inside of, I'd say good sized mid-market companies and enterprise companies. The thing that we always hear could go wrong is that somehow the politics of the company will end up
Always.
killing the
Always.
vision, like here's this amazing thing we want to go and accomplish, but to your earlier point, like will we be able to have the internal infrastructure to pull it off,
Yeah.
right? Which is something that we can actually help with, and we can mitigate a lot of these risks for our clients. It's actually a big part of what we do. But then it's, okay, yeah, next step, the politics. Will the organization support it? Will this other, department, shut it down for whatever
Yeah.
reason? So it really comes down to that appetite for us. It's, usually companies we're working with, they have the budget. It comes down to, do they have the leadership that says, this is where we want to go. We know it's
Yeah.
important to get there. But now we can really rally everybody and make sure it actually happens. I guess the one caveat I'll put there is we encounter 2 different types of clients. One is our back is against the wall.
Yeah.
Time has caught up with us, and now we can't afford to not digitally transform. We can't afford to not be seen as a digital company. We can't afford to continue doing what we're doing. It's just a ship that's slowly sinking. But on the flip side, we also
Yeah.
have companies that say, "Hey, we're just trying to be proactive. Like we know we'll eventually get there,
Yeah.
and we want to get things moving today." And when those companies can actually pull the trigger and get the internal company to really band around the idea of like, "Hey, we have to get here and let's do it. Let's make it happen." That's when really amazing. That's where we see just huge success. But it's trickier without your back against the wall, as you can imagine.
Yeah, could not agree more. And great strategy there overall. And I completely agree that politics is probably going to be one of the biggest barrier. But typically, from our experience, when we deal with these companies, it's hard, even for the leaders as well, because number one, and that's why I like to say, yes, the politics is going to be sort of the symptom, but it is also the skill set. To be honest, okay. If you have done these things 100 times, then you would probably be able to relate with what you are trying to communicate or any of the consulting firms are trying to communicate. But let's say if you have never done it, if you don't understand how to work with the consulting firms, with the design firms, it becomes very hard in general Do you feel similar way? I mean, do you feel that a skill set is a problem as well, or is it really politics?
Yeah, I mean, I would say once we have one or two leaders' confidence, we do a pretty good job of rallying the rest of the team, and getting people to really move forward. And to take a step back and say, you know, once again, where we're coming in, and I guess I didn't totally answer your previous question on like the process and so forth, so I'll try to touch on that a bit.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
where we're coming in is often, hey, we've had this mid-market company for 15, 30, 50 years. And now we really need to transform it. We need to be seen as the cool company that really gets it, that understands technology, that understands where things are going. We want to see our enterprise value double. We want to see our market cap shoot up.
yeah,
It's usually when companies are reaching out to us. At that point, we're jumping in and doing a number of things. Initially, of course, is like an assessment
yeah,
of where they currently figuring out their current state, future state, that normal stuff. But where I'd say that we really excel is in two places. One is in helping figure out like what that future case is, the future scenario for them,
yeah,
and paint a way that can actually get everybody extremely excited. Because usually it's something like people don't come to us for like the standard cookie cutter answer that they'll get from
yeah,
the other 90. They come to us for like something that just blows their mind they had never thought of, right?
yeah,
So once they see it, they go, okay, we have to do that thing. Now we have to make that happen.
yeah,
Um, and then it's the second part is collaboration between us and their team. So to answer your question, I'm kind of like they don't have the experience. It's like, okay, that's all right. Like we're here, like we'll be your guides on this journey to get from here to there.
yeah,
Uh, Even help them hire people internally,
yeah,
the right people. We help them figure out how to get those people, the processes to work together. So like eventually we can remove ourselves. Except what usually happens is if you're successful in helping a company to double their enterprise value, they become really busy. They have
yeah,
lots of more stuff, a lot more
yeah,
demand, and then they usually just start saying, "Can you help us build a team and you guys stay around forever because we just have too much stuff going on?" And that's how our relationships usually go. But that collaboration side is such a huge piece. It's our team, their team. We just become the team that's making it happen.
yeah.
And and yeah, it's usually painted with some amazing future vision that we actually end up getting to one phase at a time. Does that answer
It
more or less? And
does.
if not, tell me where I'm messing up, and I'll.
You're definitely not messing up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build on top of that, and then probably you can answer some more. Okay. So let's say our audience is the CFOs and COOs. Okay. And they are going to be slightly conservative in the way they think. Okay. Because the kind of, things that they are doing in their daily life, they have to be.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Now, when you think from their perspective, so here we are talking about, and the process that you are talking about in their mind, this is going to be slightly more R&D. Okay, you are creating something new, which is not proven. If it is already proven, then that would not be new. So there is a little conflict there, right? So you are doing a little bit of R&D. In general, the R&D projects are tend to be risky because you have never done it. You don't know whether you are going to get the real value from the investment that you are making or not. Now, you had a little bit of leap there, okay? So you're talking about this fascinating idea. It's going to blow everybody's mind. Great, I get it. But then you are also talking about increasing the enterprise value by 2x. Translating these innovative projects into financials is the hardest task that I have personally seen. I don't know whether you agree with that or not. I know that. I mean, you have to innovate. Okay, we all get it. If you don't innovate, then you don't necessarily have a competitive advantage. But getting from this point to this point is very, very, very hard journey. So maybe, I mean, build on that and tell us how you see the design projects translating into the value. And if you have any stories that you might be able to share where you have done this work where the value was really translated into X, that will probably break things down for our listeners.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll try to give a couple of examples really fast.
Yeah.
So in one regard, we've worked with companies where they've been in business for 80 years. Have a market cap of 10 to 20 billion. Have tons of employees, all that fun stuff, and they've got technology that they've been building for 30 years. And technology has been kind of all over the place. They've had it. They've known technology was a thing that they had to like incorporate. They have a big internal team of people that are building software for them, but it's all disjointed. And when people look at their company, they're still just seen as kind of a legacy company that has technology, but they aren't seen as like a technology-driven company. And I think a good example of what a technology-driven company could look like is you could look at like even one of our clients, like Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean, they're a cruise company, but when you look at them, their apps are amazing. The technology on the ships is amazing. They're at the forefront of all technology. The booking process online, etc. They're really turning themselves into like a tech company. I think of companies like Starbucks, where I don't know one person that doesn't say we want something like the Starbucks app. Like that just really works, and to where when I pull up to a Starbucks to get the coffee, my wife goes, "Here, you have to use the app because I got to get my points and so forth." It's become ingrained in those companies where one's serving coffee, one's doing, these huge ships and these huge cruises, but both of them are now becoming seen as true tech leaders, and you can see that represented in their value as well. When you compare Starbucks to, say, another coffee chain, and it just goes on to, you look at McDonald's. McDonald's is really doing a hard push in this direction as well. They have been for a while. Even to one we mentioned in our previous conversation, New York Times, where New York Times is, historically known as a paper gets thrown on your porch, but everybody knew that was a doomed industry. They've really done a great job of pivoting to now having reoccurring revenue through a subscription plan to their digital service. I mean, they are another version of Netflix. And when once again, you look at the value of those companies now because of this, it changes pretty drastically. So now going back to like how that transition can happen, we'll jump into these companies, and to your point, first step is an R&D. It's very easy to get that sign off when their back's against the wall. Like you said, once it's like, hey, we have to change because either our competitors are, or we think a new company is going to come into our sector and really disrupt us, and also we have to get rid of our 30,000 employees. But also sometimes it can happen with companies just being ambitious, and sometimes a new CEO is put in place and they go, it's time to mix things up. I need to make my mark. I need to show my legacy. So when that happens, we get brought in. We do this R&D phase, which usually starts with an assessment. We jump in, we talk with our department, we look at all the technology that's been built so far. Really figure out where things stand at that point. And then from there, also through talking with everybody, as well as doing these design sprints and so forth, we get everybody aligned on like, okay, so we know where we are, but now where do we want to get to? And that get to usually something that says, hey, we become the Starbucks or the New York Times or whatever of our industry. We're really seen as like somebody that's tech driven. And then you need a path to get from here to here. And that path is, I'm sure you can relate extremely with your business. The best metaphor is always like, or analogy is, it's like changing the tire on a moving car. So how do we get from here to there? Everything has to keep rocking, right? And keep everybody aligned and keep the politics all moving. And I'd say that's kind of where we've become masters is, okay, here's phase one, here's phase two, here's phase three, here's phase four. But each step of that gets you on a pathway towards actually having, towards actually like becoming more tech driven, but also offering more value to your end users. And to answer your question, how does that actually end up affecting your value? It comes in when people start saying, like, your consumers start saying, hey, wow, this is an amazing experience. I'm actually enjoying this. Wow, this technology they're creating, it puts them at another level. Let me tell other people. When their employees start saying, I didn't know I worked for a cool company. Wow, this company is actually like, I can totally tell the difference. Like they've made a huge here to there. And then that just continues to add to it to where the company becomes more and more seen as not through their marketing, not saying, hey guys, look, we're digital now, but actually through their actions and the work that they're doing, creates a real foundation where people say, okay, this actually is a forward company. And it removes them from a situation of being disrupted. It removes them from a situation of just sitting there waiting, for their ship to slowly sink. Or, I think even worse than a ship slowly sinking is when things just slowly get better year after year,
Yeah.
or you look at it and say, we think we're doing great because our stock has been consistently going up to the right. And it goes, and you look at it and you say, yes, it has been, but the market has been going up in the right faster, So like you're actually underperforming the market, even though
Yeah,
you've been
I
going
know.
up in the right. So it's really about how do you make a significant change. I'll give two examples real quick of companies. One that had been kind of in the technology world for a while, and one that hadn't been. Actually, I'll give three really fast. So one was a healthcare company,
Yeah.
and they'd been doing, I want to say something like 50 million a year, and they've been
Hmm.
doing that for like years. They'd been going up for a while, but then they'd stagnated as tech companies started to come into their segment,
Yeah.
and they plateaued. That plateau was because they had a reoccurring product, and their product was sticky, so it was hard to get rid of them. But they hadn't sold one new piece of software in 5 years.
Huh.
So all they had was their kind of like the companies that they'd sold beforehand. And then in
Yeah.
the last 5 years, they did these huge sales processes.
Yeah.
Every time they were losing to these new companies that were coming in that were more tech focused,
Yeah.
right? So they came to us and they were referred to us by the private equity company to say, "Hey, can you help them?" And so we did. We jumped in and helped them to rebuild the front end of the products. We kept all
Huh.
the back end. This back end that they had worked for 15 years to build.
Yeah.
Crazy complex stuff. We would never want to come in and
Yeah.
rebuild or touch. And their expertise is way higher than in that world, which was like running hospitals
Yeah.
than our expertise ever would be. However, and how to present it to users, the user experience, that front end engagement, the front end of how they're presented to the rest of the world,
Yeah.
that we excelled. So we came in, we collaborated with them, rebuilt all that. And it's not just like it's not putting lipstick on a pig. It's actually
Yeah.
like completely like transforming that experience. So it's something amazing to where they started winning every single of these sales processes that they'd go through. And within 12 months of us starting to work with them, they 10x their revenue.
Huh.
10x revenue
Wow.
after
Wow.
being for 5 years, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And it just continues, right? So another very similar story, completely different industry, a company that mainly worked with governments to help them run. I'm trying to not give too many details of them, but
Yeah.
so it was basically a government run facility, had software that would run the entire thing. At some point, this software got turned consumer facing, so people could actually access it themselves versus having to like pick up a phone and call people.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that tech companies and startup founders and so forth started coming to the space. Same exact thing happened with them. Their sales process, because it was government and so forth, was about a 3-year process
Hmm.
because it was for 5-year contracts. And if you lost them, you had to wait another 5 years and then you start
Right.
coming up with a sales pitch again. So
Tell me about it.
yeah. So they had the state of California as one of their big clients. And funny enough, the CTO of the state of California had gotten so much hate mail about the experience that he was
Huh.
threatening them. They were referred to us to like help them solve this because he was getting hate mail from the people, the human beings, his constituents, about this.
Oh my goodness.
Their back was against the wall, and they said, okay. But so because their back was against the wall, we jumped in. Once again, they've been building this tech. If we tried to rebuild, it would take us 7 years.
Yeah.
But we jump in with their team and say, cool, you built all this great stuff. We built a middleware that just made it faster and accessible to other things. And then from there, we built these amazing user experiences that people just generally loved. And now, when they went back, I swear, the next 5 sales pitches, these once every 5 years, they won every single one of them after having not won any previously. To the point that they won New York, they won Florida, they won they won the country of Canada. So up your neck of the woods, they won the country of Australia. And then when they sold the company about a year and a half later. I got a text message from the CEO saying, "Hey, just want you to know, sold the company. Thank you."
Very
and it's just
interesting. Awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
I've got a slew of these stories, but they all follow a similar path, which is like, hey, we've been around, we've been doing a good job. We have lots of kind of existing disjointed technology, but
Yeah,
now we need to take it from this level to this level. And both growth, revenue, how much the people love actually, their users and their employees love working with them. But
yeah.
then the end result when you do all those things is the value of your company goes up because no longer are you a ship doing this, you're a ship doing this.
Yeah, very interesting. So I want to touch on a couple of points. Obviously, some are going to be specific, some are going to be slightly more generic. So number one, you mentioned the design sprints for roughly 3, 4 days that you do in a room. Are you still doing in
Yeah.
a room? Are you utilizing some sort of tools? Now we have far superior tools. I don't know which one you use, Miro or whatever, for the collaboration. Are you utilizing any of those tools right now in doing the virtual collaboration? Or do you still feel the value is there in meeting and doing these design workshops in person?
Yeah, so great question. And just in general, for anybody that hasn't looked into these design sprints, it's Google Ventures Design Sprints. Pull up their website. They have a book called Sprint. They're amazing. They're just an amazing process. And the biggest win of a design sprint, in my mind, is getting that alignment from all the
Yeah,
executives. Because a huge part of this design sprint process is taking ideas from everybody understanding everybody else's point of view, and then working together to come together on something. And by the end of it, every single department is saying, yes, I want this to win, versus one department saying, we're really excited, we want this to win, and every other department saying, oh no, we wanted to do our version of it, so we hope you fail. Which unfortunately be part of a large organization. So it really helps uniting everybody. So it connect even more. So now to answer your question, when the pandemic hit, we were still doing a lot of these, and so we had to immediately move into like a remote version of it. So
yeah,
we've done remote ones. We've been very successful with it. We actually did a remote one 2 months ago, just because the executives were across the country and it was really hard to get everybody's schedules together. So we did
yeah,
one. It's possible. Preference: fly everybody into a room. If you can get everybody in a room, it's more efficient.
yeah.
And it's just great for everybody. So I mean, definitely, I prefer getting everybody into a room. However, it can definitely be done remote as well, and we do it quite often, and it's still going to be successful. But if all things were equal, I'd definitely take people in a room.
Yeah, definitely in person matters a lot, especially when you are looking for any sort of change initiatives. It's very, very, very hard for people to follow along, especially if they have never done it. Especially, I mean, I see this a lot. In fact, I mean, see, I am to blame as well. Sometimes I just assume things and people will get these automatically. Being in the software and technology world for a while, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, do I really need to explain this? But you'll be shocked. Again, the skill set matters a lot. So let's go back to some more commentary that you had mentioned. And one of the things that I noticed, especially in the industries that you are talking about, you are obviously touching about the customer experience aspect of the problem. And when you look at the customer experience, especially the industries that are going to be slightly more consumer driven. So the majority of the industries that you have mentioned, they were very consumer focused. That's number one. Number two is, I'm not too sure if the customer experience requirements are going to be similar in the other industries that we deal with. And, sometimes I feel that, let's say if you look at bank or insurance company, even to some extent the healthcare or logistics company, these companies don't really have as much cost in the inventory. Okay. If you look at manufacturing, retail, for them, creating budget for something like this is very hard. So I don't know. I mean, do you feel any sort of trend with respect to the companies that you're dealing with? They are spending a lot more in the customer experience versus the other industries that I am talking about, because in these industries, they don't really spend as much in the customer experience. And I don't even know if sales is the biggest problem for them because they have a lot of sales. So maybe
Yeah,
for
yeah.
them.
So I mean, I think what we're talking about here can be applied to any business, because the end user, I should really say like human face. right?
Yep.
Because the end user can be, it can be employees, it can be their partners,
Yeah.
So we with some really large 3PLs where they have a lot of different contractors, they have a lot of other companies that they're working with, and those experience of those people working with them, plus their internal teams
Yeah.
and so forth, can totally change how they're viewed, and if they're chosen over, it seems like almost every industry is now being disrupted,
Yeah.
and every company that's huge has somebody that's vying for their position,
Yep.
and usually the difference there is that new disruptive company. I mean, what is the consistent thing that's happening? These new companies have better technology, they have better
Yeah, they do.
experiences, better brand, etc., and they're coming in and they're stealing, stealing a share of the market from the leaders, right?
Yeah.
Uh, when it shouldn't happen, Uh, so do I think that it's limited to only like consumer facing or sales? Definitely not. And I could give another 20 examples of companies that it's not even that piece of it for them, but
Yeah.
everything that in a human being is where it really starts mattering. So every time a human interacts with your company, and how are they going to interact with your company? It's either
Yeah.
through people, right? Like they pick up a phone or they meet
Yeah.
somebody in
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
or it's your technology,
Yep.
right? Like those are
Yeah.
the three ways people will interact with your brand. If those interactions with the technology are great interactions, then they start to view your entire brand, your entire company in a different light than they would otherwise. They have more confidence, not just in your ability to execute on technology. They have more confidence in your ability to execute on everything you do. If I go to a doctor's office and the check-in experience is horrible and I'm like rewriting something on paper 40 times and so forth, am I going to have the same confidence in what everything else that they do versus
Yeah.
when I go into one and they're like, hey, we're going to actually maybe immediately back to the room, and once you get back to that room, somebody will show up with an iPad and they're just going to double check 4 or 5 things. They're going to ask you 2 or 3 questions, take a picture of something, and
Yeah.
they'll get headed out. You're like, that's the most efficient process I've ever had.
Yeah.
You have more confidence in everything they do, and you're going to go back there more often. And I can actually speak for myself, not as somebody who's built these experiences, but for myself as an end user.
Yeah.
The hospital I go to all the time now is the first one that made me go, wow, I never had experience. Like this has always been horrible. And now I've shown
Exactly.
up and it's like amazing. Like I immediately went back to a room. Somebody showed up and the technology was smooth. It was flawless, the checkout experience, etc. It's the only place I'll ever go to now. And so many companies wait for somebody to do that and completely disrupt them and take away all their users before they say, hey, maybe we should do that.
Exactly.
And so that's where I would, to your question, I would push that any single company that has any type of technology that touches a human being definitely needs this. And any company that doesn't have technology that touches a human being, you really need this.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, man. So I think we can talk for hours. This conversation can go on, but
Great.
obviously, I mean, we have to limit this in like 30, 40 minutes so that it's digestible. So do you have any last minute closing advice for our listeners?
No, I think this is a lot of fun because I think you and your company do an amazing job of hitting one side of digital transformation, an incredibly needed side of digital transformation. But I think this has been a fun podcast for the fact that, like, I think it hopefully allows people to see that digital transformation is this bigger piece that has kind of two sides of it. From everything that I know about yourself as well as your company, you guys are absolutely just killing this side of it, and that's amazing. But I think it's important for people to realize there's this whole other side of it too, of like, cool, your company is operating in an efficient, optimized way, but now you need to make sure that you're also reaping the benefits past just efficiency to actually being seen as that company that you're put the effort into becoming. If that makes
Could not
sense.
agree more. Yeah. The customer experience is definitely where the play is, and you need to differentiate yourself. You need to figure out that human experience is what you have been preaching so far. Wherever you have the human touches, I think you need to make that flawless. So I'm simply picking the terms that you have mentioned during the episode. So thank you so much for your time. This has been a powerful episode.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Sam.
Of course. I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you would like to learn more about Chris, head over to verybigthings.com. It's VERYBIGTHINGS.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.